Welcome to Amjambo Time, the podcast where stories from Africa and its diasporas meet memory, resistance, and hope. I'm Roger Wilikaneza. Today's episode takes us to Portland, Maine, in November 2025, where art became testimony and the music carried the weight of exile, survival, and faith. In a powerful reimagining of Handel's Messiah, refugee artist and the poet Nyamuon Nguany Machar, also known as Moon, brought the stage to life with Gospel Messiah, a fusion of gospel, spoken word, theater, and lived refugee experience. This is not just a performance. It is a story of displacement and belonging, a story of mothers, fathers, and children forced to carry home on their backs. A story of joy as resistance. In this episode, we listen to Moon's voice, calm, fierce, and deeply human, as she explains how art becomes memory, advocacy, and healing. Stay with us.
You are listening to Amjambo Time on 90.9 FM, WMPG, Gorham, Portland, radio from the University of Southern Maine.
For those who don't know you, can you describe yourself, please? Who you are?
Absolutely. My name is Nyamuon Nguany Machar. I would best describe myself as a Nuer woman from East Africa who came from an Ethiopian mother.
I think I can try to pronounce Nyamuon Nguany Machar.
That's very impressive.
Great.
That's actually very impressive.
Now, you're speaking with Amjambo Africa. First question, what inspired you to create Gospel Messiah as a refugee-oriented reimagining of Messiah by George Friedrich Handel?
So the piece already exists on its own, and it has a very biblical narrative, and it captures kind of the story of Jesus growing up in a Catholic family and intimately understanding the plight that the Messiah, or the context of that narration. I knew that Jesus was an immigrant, and he was a refugee, and the anxieties that is told in that narrative, it exists today. That same human experience is still happening. And as an artist, sometimes you feel helpless when political rhetoric comes and it affects your community. The soldier knows what to do, the politician knows what to do, what does the painter do, what does the poet do? And so I saw this as an opportunity to give theater to my community's experience, my family's experience. And I knew that, I have this talent of being able to write poetry and capture the experiences of those who look like me in a way that is received, in a way that rhymes, that has rhythm. And so I wanted to make this piece come alive and kind of pay homage to the experiences that we're facing, because the news gets to tell our story, the articles get to tell our story, but art, I think, is another way that could also be news, and it could also be, a powerful way to be able to let individuals know, no, this is what is happening with us, this is how it feels, this is how it exists in our community.
Nyamuon, can you describe how the experiences of refugees and immigrants are woven into the musical and, theatrical structure, if I can say, of the oratorio?
So, right away, it follows the story of a refugee family. So there is a theatrical component. So you'll be able to see an actual refugee family go through this journey in order to find this new sense of where home lives. And, a lot of us understand that a lot of our movement, a lot of our displacement and our migration erupted from an event, from that crisis, from that war, from that famine, from that situation. And so in this piece, you get to actually see in theater what it looks like for a father, a mother, and their children to pack, quite literally have to carry their things and decide what is most important to kind of take it through this journey to find this new sense of home. And it makes me feel very proud of my parents, because I think now I'm at the age that's past what they were when they left their home. And I don't think I have that bravery now if something was to happen to pick up and take my daughter to a different country that I don't know anything about. So that's where it lives. It lives in the whole piece, really. And my poetry obviously centers on the immigrant experience, and so we'll be telling the story of what the family is going through.
What roles do local refugee students and adults, of course, play in the performance? Are they singing, acting, writing, or just collaborating in other ways?
Okay, so we have students, including my daughter, who are acting in the play. And so they get to kind of touch, and it's really fun to watch them in rehearsals because, I'm sure they're young, so they don't understand the magnitude of the story that's being told and how much emotion it carries. And so I'm sure when they get older and they look back at their experiences and they understand what this collective piece was aiming to do, it will speak to them and they'll know that they were a part of it, even though in this current time, it's just them having fun at rehearsals and acting and doing what, the directors are telling them to do. But then I have my brother, my baby brother, who's also a writer, who gets to debut kind of on the Portland stage and share his poetry. And so he will be writing, and he also will be playing the father in the refugee family on stage as well. And we also have singers. We have gospel singers who are incredible, singers on their own. They come from the African American community. One of them is a close friend of mine, Alyssa Lewis, who is the worship leader at the church up on the hill, on Mundray Hill, with Pastor Lewis. And so they get to bring in this other component of a representation of a Black community, because gospel, if you know where it's birthed from, really has deep roots in the African American community. So on the theater, you'll get to see this different representation of what oppression or what a community is able to scream out or, release from their creative.
How did you assemble your creative team, arranger, organists, and musicians, singers, spoken words, poets? What criteria did you see?
I stay in my lane, and so we have an incredible musician that we're working with, Jack Meeby, who created this gospel messiah without this theatrical component to it back in LA. And so he is an organist who already has the talent, who already has years within the jazz and the gospel world. And then for the singers, we consulted about what we wanted represented on stage. And so I knew that there had to be a representation of an oppressed community that had a component to it, because I wanted it to be a real living and breathing piece. And then for the refugee family, I wanted it to look multicultural. So, we have the mom who's from an Asian community, my brother he's half Ethiopian, half South Sudanese, and then we have the children who also come from Jamaica and different countries, because the refugee story, I wanted it to look like an abstract family that tells what it would look like for an Asian family who also have refugees, who also have crisis from, even the Jamaican islands, who also come from certain oppressions. And so I wanted to make sure that we represented a collective global representation of the refugee experience, because the refugee experience, and when we talk about it, it's not Black. It doesn't look African. Maybe there's a lot of stigma that places it there, but it's a global epidemic. And so that was a piece of it too, that I wanted to make sure that on stage that it looked eclectic. So there was different representations of cultures, of color, of representation and gender.
What are the main challenges in producing a piece that merges gospel music, oratorio form, spoken word, and refugee immigrant narratives?
I mean, you just described it. It's all those things that are so independent, and so how do we make them exist and look like one collective choir, right? And so I think that one of the challenges was the different styles and the way. So gospel has its own very, deeply rooted, um, uh, uh, um, Southern old time feel to it. And then the poetry, if you think about it, again, and my poetry specifically speaks a lot to refugee camps. It's child soldiers. It's very potent in its consideration. And then you have the dancer who is a ballet dancer who has to move to the words, and that has been the challenge. But it's been a fun challenge because it makes you reimagine what creatively looks like they could go together. And when you talk about it, they might look like, how does ballet go with poetry? But then when you see them come alive and you see, oh, okay, so words can be music. It can cause the body to move in rhythm. And that's been a really, really awesome experience. And it's actually grown me, I think, as an artist to imagine, where does poetry live? It's not just in recital, it could actually be in production.
From your perspective, what do you hope audience members walk away with after seeing these performances?
So I anticipate that this is going to be a largely white audience, and because it's not far fetched. We are in Maine. It's a predominantly white state. But I know, and what I anticipate is they're going to start finding commonality with the refugee story and the human emotion that's represented there, that at one time felt like it was so alien to them, at one time felt like it seems like it's their problem. It's getting closer and closer to home. If you look at what's going on in the news, if you look at what's going on in the current administration, they're starting to feel the anxieties of not having a power that you trust to protect you, of having shattered hopes because of promises that were not fulfilled, of having the luxury of depending on a moral compass to run, the world around you is now broken. And it's a very unique time and space for, I think, the American community to be in, but it's going to be very ironic and an opportunity for connection once they realize that we all have the potential to be refugees at any point in time. And so maybe we should start thinking a little deeper about the ways that we brand someone's experience, or the ways that we place labels on individuals without taking the time to learn about what they're going through.
I think you're planning a talkback session with performers on Saturday evening. What kinds of discussions or engagement do you expect during that kind of segment?
But I'm looking forward to it because we are all working on different pieces of it, and so it's going to be interesting to for us to all together see it on one theater, and every day something new is on the news. So I can't even tell you what we will be responding to on Saturday, but I anticipate that it's going to make us have to address the climate that we're in and how much power exists when we take each one of our collective traumas and our experiences and the lessons that we've learned, and we talk to each other about it rather than compare it or try to create a pedestal to say my hurt is worse than yours, my needs are more than yours. I think that there's an opportunity that you'll be able to see from our talk back that could be used also as advice to the community, that our traumas and our experiences are not in competition with one another. It actually is a lot more beneficial for us to come together and let me understand yours so that you can understand mine, and in that we'll find a solution.
Yeah, thank you for that. That touches me a lot. Can you share, a particularly moving moment or story from, the rehearsal process or among participants without, breaching privacy, that maybe exemplifies the spirit of this project?
I mean, there's been a few pieces because even when we took on this project, we had other shows that led up to this. So we had three other shows that came to kind of launch what's happening next week. And one of them was Scent of Grief, was a solo show that I did where I was able to pay homage to my father, who I lost last year.
Sorry for that.
Thank you. And I think that for me and so many others in the community who came to the show, it felt like that was his real funeral. Like that was, because I don't remember it, like the actual funeral, because of the emotions. But since that time had passed, I think that Scent of Grief allowed a space for all of us together to kind of celebrate the giant that my father was, and seeing the community reaction. Because funny enough, many in my community, in my South Sudanese community and larger community, don't know that I'm a poet, or like as an African community, you're like, I'm an artist. If you're not painting or you don't show us, it's hard for them to encompass it. And so it made me feel very good that they saw the potential and the power in creative writing. And I hope that they encourage their own children, if they do have certain passions for creative writing, to encourage it, because it's not just for performance, it's also for power, it's also for advocacy.
Nyamuon, how do you plan to measure or gauge the impact of this performance on both refugee immigrant participants and the broader community? I think you touched it a lot, but can you tell us?
I think success will come in the questions I hear back from my community. What's awesome about being in this smaller artistic community is you get to see your audience back in the community, at the grocery store, and in different spaces, or we're in the age of media, and I don't know if it's a gift that God had given me or what, but I'm able to actually see what the spirit of my work looks like in the things people are sharing. Like the feedback. I know that even for my first show, I could tell who lost their dad just by the ways that they approached me and the ways that their countenance kind of said, okay, I recognize and I feel seen by this. And so that's how I think that I'll be able to gauge it back, and by how loud they clap,
One can ask, would there be any follow-up event, community initiatives, or educational outreach connected to the oratorio after the performances?
Yeah, absolutely. So at this performance, I'll be able to kind of introduce the projects that I'm working on around my dad's grave. I sent him back to his village in South Sudan, and as conflict arises, I think that sometimes we're disencouraged to dream about the potential of a space or our dreams for a space because they scare you with war and crisis. But I think that I'm excited to share, without giving away too much, my hopes for this project. But I know that this Gospel Messiah piece is going to definitely be shown again. And we want to be able to take it to different theaters and create more panels of different individuals who are relevant to the conversation. From history, we know that artists are dangerous to political structures because we're able to say things in metaphor that so many others are fear saying, or we're able to represent through paint, the pain of a mother or an individual, where it's not easily tried in court. And so I know that this piece will continue to live, and I know that this is just the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think at some point you guys will take it outside of Maine?
Yes. Why, do you have some money for us?
Okay. Which leads us to this following question. Funding is listed from several organizations.
Yes.
Onion Foundation, Maine Humanities Council, Nichols Fund. How did you secure this support, and how important were these partnerships in making the project happen?
I appreciate that even the funders that you mentioned, they appreciate the arts and they appreciate when an individual has something to say, and the ways that we were able to organize and creatively create a document and a description around it, even when we didn't see the bigger picture, but we just saw that there was a need. Because when we first started talking about it, it was in the earlier days of the administration when you started to see something brewing, in the belly of the beast. And we knew that it was very, very important that we secured a time and space, especially in November as the elections and everything is coming up, that we needed to have our voice like a scheduled to be in this time now as we start to talk about it. So it was through that passion and through dreaming and trusting each other as directors, as musicians, as artists, that we're going to stay committed to it. And so a big part of it took the right individuals to come together and commit to something much larger than our own egos or our own display of whatever talents that we have. But we understood the responsibility of what this piece could mean for the voice of a community.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in such a situation, I think one can ask, what are you most excited for in this production, and what are, of course, you secretly a little nervous about?
I'm excited for my daughter to act and be on the theater because I'm just a doubting mama, and I'm really excited that I'm excited to see my community members see me in this space. And one thing I'm secretly nervous about, I mean, you're an artist, so you never know how your work is going to be received. And so there's always that are they going to understand? Because spoken word poetry has its very unique way of being presented, and it's quick, it's fast. I speak very fast, and like I've had audiences that are, a little more elderly who might come from a different time than me. There's those small anxieties that I just try to kind of beat down to practice and rehearsal.
As an expert, if someone is coming to the performance for the first time, perhaps unfamiliar with oratorios or gospel music, what would you recommend they pay attention to?
Treat it like church. Treat it like but not like a boring church. Like with a spirit-filled church, and allow yourself to kind of fall into the emotions of the music. It's not there. Don't come just to watch, come to feel, is what I would say.
Well, come to feel. Beyond the show itself, how can attendees support the ongoing work and mission behind Gospel Messiah?
Follow me on social media. Be attentive, and when you read about articles and you're watching the news, and this is not even just for Gospel Messiah or this, but the much larger responsibility and response I hope comes in the community. It's that when you see this family and you get to watch and from a safe distance the realities and the horrors that communities go through. Next time you see an article where it talks about refugees or it talks about a family or it calls a human being illegal, make sure that you go and you give care to the ones in your community that look like that. Make sure that you are not blinded and you don't go with a wave of statistics and numbers. Make sure that you place human emotions towards humans is, I guess, what I would say. That's a way to support. Like for me, outside of any money or anything else, I hope that it lives with you. That when you hear the word refugee again, and it's spoken about in a way that just demeans people to just numbers, to just death counts, that to you, it strikes a chord. strikes a chord, yeah.
Nyamuon, brief message to the world today.
It's not ignorance to live above the noise right now. It's not you being irresponsible. I think that some of us have to separate ourselves from or the emotional attachment that we have to decisions of policymakers and individuals. And joy is also a form of resistance. And so just leave yourself a little room to be selfish with your peace. And it's okay to take a break, and you don't have to wake up every day trying to save the world. Sometimes in saving yourself, you're going to save the world.
Nyamuon Nguany Machar, thank you for speaking with Amjambo Africa.
You're very welcome.
Hunda gusoma Amjambo Africa.
When you are an immigrant, one thing that you desperately need is information. When people are reading the newspaper, Amjambo Africa, they can definitely trust that this is coming from the right source.
Do our best to help bridge gaps between communities.
Very important that all voices in our community are heard.
Young people can really benefit from Amjambo Africa.
This paper connects us all with things that are relevant to all of us.
This newspaper made people visible because they can see themselves, through one of those, languages.
Immigrant voices are not only vital to our future, they are part of our history, is an opportunity we should embrace.
But Amjambo Africa can just give us a sense of hope when we're reading what's going on back.
As Portland and the state embraces more and more immigration, connecting between not only the immigrant community, but the locals.
J'aime lire Amjambo Africa. Est-ce que vous lisez Amjambo Africa?
Amjambo means what? It's in Swahili. DRC Congo, they use as a greeting, hello or good morning.
I see Amjambo Africa as becoming a real force in the state.
You've been listening to Amjambo Time, a production of Amjambo Africa. Today, we heard how Gospel Messiah transformed the classical Western oratorio into a living archive of refugee experience where poetry breathes, gospel cries out, and the survival becomes sacred. Nyamuon Machar reminds us that refugees are not statistics. They are storytellers, they are creators, they are witnesses of history. As Moon say, joy is a form of resistance, and sometimes choosing to survive, to protect one piece, is itself an act of courage. If this story moved you, share it. Talk about it. Let it travel beyond the borders. I'm Kaneza. Thank you for listening to Amjambo Time. Until next time, stay human, stay curious, and stay connected.
Abana bawe batengamare, siri nambara, siri nugun.